Scary Recaps presents The Empty Man from 2020. Beware of spoilers. In 1995, in the Ura Valley, Bhutan, 4 friends, Paul, Greg, Fiona, and Ruthie, are hiking on a mountain in search of a special spot. After crossing a perilous rope bridge, Paul hears a strange sound that seems to call him. He follows it and falls into a crevasse. Greg goes down to rescue him and finds his friend sitting across a big and outlandish skeleton whilst murmuring to himself. Paul looks as if he's been hypnotized, so Greg carries him out of the cave. Along with the rest of the group, they take him to an abandoned house nearby and spend the night there as they are unable to leave due to a snowstorm. The next day, Paul is lying silent and doesn't look any better. Outside the house, Ruthie spots a strange figure in the snowstorm that seems to haunt her. The unknown creature charges towards her, but she manages to get back inside the house and shuts the door. She asks Greg and Fiona if they had seen or heard anything outside, but they say there's nothing out there. Later that night, while Ruthie sleeps, Paul whispers something in her ear. When morning comes, Paul leaves the house. The group finds him near the bridge they crossed earlier while hiking. He whispers something, and Ruthie becomes dazed and attacks Greg and Fiona. Using a knife, she stabs Greg and slices Fiona's throat and throws them both off the cliff. Paul looks at her with eyes full of terror, and then she leaps over the cliff as well. 20 years later, in 2018, in Missouri, former detective James LaSombra, who is now working in a security store, struggles hard to overcome the loss of his wife and son during a car accident only a year before the current timeline. He is friends with a local woman by the name of Nora and looks out for her teenage daughter, Amanda, whose father had passed away. She sees James as a type of fatherly figure. Nora calls James and informs him that Amanda has run away. They find a message written in blood on the bathroom mirror which reads, "The empty man made me do it." Police arrive and start investigations, and so does James. He goes to Amanda's high school and speaks with Devara, one of her friends. Devara reveals to James that a few nights ago, she, Amanda, and 5 more friends were on a bridge where Amanda had this idea of summoning the empty man, an urban legend that is reported to take 3 days to manifest. Specifically, on the first day, those who summon him shall hear him calling to them. On the second day, his presence shall be made known to them, and eventually, on the third day, he shall find them. The group of teenagers on the bridge that night blew into a bottle as tradition would have it, and Devara also mentions that she saw Amanda whispering in Brandon's ear. James decides to visit that bridge and see what he can find. He discovers the hanged dead bodies of the group of teenagers from the night described to him by Devara. On a wooden beam, he sees the same message found in Amanda's bathroom. While the policemen and paramedics clear the scene, Devara is being attacked and killed in the spa by the empty man in a fashion that appears to be suicide, as the young girl seems to be stabbing herself in the face with a pair of scissors. James investigates further into the matter of the empty man. He subsequently learns of a cult named the Pontifex Institute, with beliefs originating from places like Bhutan. He thinks the institute is what brought the teenagers close to the legend of the empty man. Therefore, he makes up his mind to pay them a visit. Once there, the leader of the institute, Arthur Parsons, tells him that the empty man is an entity that provides his followers with what they desire, as long as they do his bidding. The next day, James begins to follow people that are associated with the institute. He is led to a cabin in the woods where he finds some strange and disturbing evidence, and also files about Amanda, her friends, Paul from the 1995 hike to Bhutan, and himself. The cult members are performing a fire ritual with James watching. but he is soon spotted and hunted down, barely making an escape. He visits Nora after and tells her that Amanda could be a member of this cult, and expresses his worries about her safety. It is revealed here that James and Nora are together, their affair active even before the death of his family. Continuing his research about the Institute, James hits and kidnaps a cult member, Garrett, who reveals to him that there is a man in a hospital who the Empty Man is using to give out orders and teachings to the members of the cult. That man is Paul, who is in a coma for a long time now, and he is often visited by the Empty Man's disciples. Those who visit Paul bow before him and chant, receiving the blessings and messages of the Empty Man via Paul's body. James finds Amanda among the other disciples in Paul's room, and she tells him that Paul will soon die, exhausted and drained as he is from being the Empty Man all this time, and that the cult is in dire need of a new vessel. James tries to get her out and save her from this madness, but Amanda calmly refuses and informs him that he is destined to be the new vessel. James dismisses her absurd claims, yet finds it hard to leave. Amanda tells him that he has only existed for a few days. His life and memory made up by her and the other cult members in order to make sure of their godlike Empty Man's link between him and his grief. In a last-ditch effort to save himself, James calls Nora, but she says to him that she doesn't know who he is. Having lost his consciousness and the reality of his self, James is now an empty man. He is seen inside an eerily frightening dimension where the entity known as the Empty Man takes hold of his body. Moments later, James walks into Paul's room in the hospital. He raises his gun and shoots Paul in the head. Doctors and nurses, all members of the cult, come into the room and bow before him, viewing him as the new Empty Man.